Hey guys, welcome to this video. As you can see this time around, I am commentating, but you're not seeing my mouth move. That's because I thought I would try and play in a bit more of a focused fashion and only give the commentary afterwards. You can see we're in this tournament. I'm playing the first game against a strong opponent. 2404 is the rating. And I've got the black pieces, so this is not going to be an easy task, but let's see what we can do. I'm starting off by putting a pawn in the center of the board and developing my kingside pieces. I considered maybe playing c6, but I don't want to block the development of my knight in future, and let's just try and keep things relatively simple. Playing e6, building a nice easy sort of a structure to deal with, and let's get castled. Now, I'm also going to put my knight out here to d7. We'll see what we do in future. He's already striking in the center, which makes a lot of sense. I'll just capture it for now. And I think what I'm going to do is play the pawn up one square to c6. And in so doing, maybe blunt the diagonal that his light squared bishop sits on. And in future, I'll put my queen there on c7. And we'll see what happens after that. This time control is really quite short. It's 10 minutes. There's no increment. Here I'm going to try and bring my knight up to make room for my light squared bishop to get developed. But okay, he's playing aggressively, striking out at me now. If I want to, I could give this check with the queen, but he moves the king away. If I move my bishop back, however, there's this fork where he forks my knight and bishop. So that troubles me for a little moment. You can see I'm thinking about this. Have I already ruined my chances? But I realize that after the fork, I can move the bishop away with a check. That will make him move the king and buy me time to move my knight away. So I managed to get out of that one. I'm just looking to see where I want to put the knight. I'm happy enough with this that if he pushes the knight, I can land on e3. And it's a nice place for the knight to land with a fork on the queen and the rook, which is why he would probably trade for the bishop. Maybe I can even get a trade of the bishop, or otherwise move the bishop back, which I have to do because he's attacking it. But if I move the bishop, he's going to land his knight in a very nice outpost there. It's going to be hard for me to get rid of that knight in future. So really the best move, and I later found this out, was to actually bring the bishop back to e7 rather than doing what I did, which is what I'm outlining here with the arrows, because that does allow his knight to get very, very active and very, very secure. Nevertheless, I play this kind of hoping that he'll do a trade of bishops, which he doesn't, but at the same time, he doesn't put the knight where I thought he would. Now, he immediately in this move is going for a checkmate. And if I just simply play h6 to try and chase the knight away, it doesn't work. It's still going to be a checkmate. So I think really here, I could consider playing f5, but yeah, g6 is the move that I do play here in the end, just to really blunt that diagonal. I considered playing, f5, but after he takes, I take back, then my bishop falls. So I need to play this move. We get a trade. My bishop's undefended, so I take his bishop up there instead. We get another trade, but you see I'm down a pawn at this point. He's just won a pawn. I'll take back, and he takes back. So he's now up a pawn. And while I could take this pawn back, he then would play b3, and my bishop will be trapped. So I'm just going to play on. I play on here, attacking his queen. And I can now put a rook on the open d file. And things aren't really all that bad for me. Again, considering I'm playing quickly, relatively for my standards, I realize now that he could have taken that a7 pawn, but he decides to try and contest my control of the d file. I'm seeing that his light square diagonal toward his king is very open. If we can push his knight away, maybe we can stick our bishop on that diagonal. And I see that a pawn is still hanging. He could take it with his queen. But I'm wondering, do I try and trade things and then pin this knight to the rook? But then I realize he's going to just chase me away. We're going to trade down and I'll be worse. But I also realize before too long, the rooks defend each other. Why don't I just pin the knight to the king? That's a definite pin. I can also thereby drop the bishop back to d5 if I want. And actually, things are looking pretty good here for me in this position. Certainly, things aren't looking too bad. I'm still looking at this pawn, realizing it's undefended. What do I want to do about it? And I think what I ended up playing was this idea of c5, which blocks his attack on that pawn. It also means that in future, I can play what I do play now, which is queen c6, adding pressure to the pinned knight. And I'm not at all doing badly here against this 2400 rated player, because I can continue to try and bring in more and more pressure against the knight. And he's, of course, defending. And it's hard for me to get at that knight immediately. There's no way for me to do distraction tactics yet, but I need to be able to bring my other rook into the game. So since I can't make it happen by force, here and now, I think what I need to do is just patiently double my rooks. And he's going to double his rooks too, but hey, I at least will own the d file there. I wonder if I could push these pawns forward and get a pawn involved, but he can block those pawns off, so then nothing's going to happen there. Regardless, I think I don't have anything really much better than doubling up. He will attack my bishop. I can drop the bishop back. It'll actually come with tempo against the a2 pawn out in that right-hand corner. Anyway, I don't think I have anything better, so let's continue on like this. Okay, he's attacking this bishop. I bring it back. In so doing, blocking the advance of his e-pawn as well. He doubles up. I double up as well. Things aren't going badly here at all. In fact, here I can, at the very least, just win this pawn. That's now an available pawn, so I'll take that. And if you ask the computer at this stage, I'm actually winning by quite a lot. I've got a big advantage, and I should have played the move highlighted there. I didn't because I was afraid, and I think I highlighted that if I play that, he would play rook a2 there, and then I didn't like that, which was a big oversight by me, because if he played rook a2, my bishop could capture on a2. Anyway, I just went back and held this pin, and I'm still winning. If I play bishop c4 here instead of pawn c4, then I'd be winning. But I didn't see that at the time, unfortunately. And here I think I made a very big mistake. I think the biggest strength I have in this position is the fact that I'm pinning that knight. And what I need to do is keep that tension and try to keep on working around that pin, and the fact that his pieces are tied down. But I didn't, unfortunately. I actually completely resolved all of his troubles here, I believe, by either taking the knight right away, or maybe I took a pawn first and then took the knight. And in so doing, really freed up all of his pieces. So I'm not sure exactly which way we went here. We'll just have to wait and see. But unfortunately, like I say, bishop c4 will have been a winning move, attacking that rook, because it would have allowed me to get other rooks into the game. But here I took, as you can see, he probably sighed a big sigh of relief. Still, I thought I was doing okay, and I think I am still doing okay. You'd have to check with the computer, but I think I'm still doing fine after the queen trade, because of the fact that I own the d file. The problem is he's got very active pawns. His king is also getting a lot more active than mine. But you know what? In a game where I don't have lots of time, and I'm playing against a player of quite a high strength, 2400, I think that I've done pretty well here. Where even on material, at one point I was even better objectively, and even here, if I'm worse, I'm not a lot worse yet. There's probably not a lot to say. You can probably watch the rest of this game play out, and you'll see that I just wasn't really able to make anything happen, and he gradually was able to make something happen. So he ended up edging me out, but not a bad effort, I would say, for the first round. Now, I would like to get my king active here, bringing it towards the center, maybe king f8 or something. But I didn't like that he would push his f-pawn forward, and I just felt that pawn would always be dangerous in the future. So I wasn't particularly happy, but I decided to trade the pawns, and then to see if I could go after one of these two pawns. Yes, he can just defend with his rook, so I guess I haven't really made any progress. I was going to play king g7, but he can bring his rook to g2, check. and that just pushes me back away. So I feel like that would have been a waste of time. So I just gave him another check and thought, let's just see where he goes. He came here. He's getting his king even more active now. You see that that's the main issue here. Apart from the fact that I gave up the pin that was, let's say, the linchpin in my position, it's also that I never activated my king in this endgame. And it's that kind of small factors that allowed him to edge me out here. Here I kind of, again, have nothing better than take and try to get my king a little bit more active. But that pawn that he's pushing on the e-file is very dangerous. And really, I can't stop it. I mean, I can put my king here, but you see his king's over near the h-pawns. So his king's going to be able to go and pick my pawn off. And even though I can take one rook, which I'm just thinking about doing here and I end up doing, and then I can use the other rook in conjunction with my king to win his e-pawn, which is what we see. The problem is, because he wins my h-pawn as a result of his very active king, he's going to still end up, that one step ahead. I do have a 2-pawn majority versus 1 on the other side of the board, but unfortunately, it's just a little bit too slow. Now I realize I can bring the rook back. He takes pawn, I take pawn, he takes rook, I take rook, he steps away, and then he's obviously just going to queen. So here, of course I'm running out of time as well, but I figure I need to try at least and see if I can use my pawn majority on the other side of the board. So after takes and I take back, I have a passed pawn that might become a queen. I, really have nothing else to do. I have to try and get rid of this pawn at least. He steps to the side. Yes, I take the pawn. We get a rook trade, and we both have 1 pawn each, but you can see his pawn is going to become a queen before mine, and so I resigned. On the whole, though, I think not a bad little game against a very strong opponent. And the lesson learned is don't give up the strength that you have. If your strength is around a pin and you just cash in on the pin, quote unquote cash in, you really relieve all the pressure. You allow his pieces to move freely again. And unfortunately, that really wasn't the way to do. That wasn't the way to go. Anyway, let me know if you like this kind of, if there's any difference. Do you prefer this format where I'm thinking in the games and then only narrating later? Maybe I play better, I'm not sure. I mean, that was a decent game. While the rest of the rounds are going on in this tournament, we can have a review of this game, is basically what I thought. And here we'll be able to see some of the things that the computer points out. The first thing that you'll see is that in terms of accuracy, it wasn't a very accurate game. My accuracy was 76%, which is not great. And the first inaccuracy actually came with this bishop d6 move, but it's not a big deal. I mean, even though it says these are big mistakes, I mean, in a very quick game, it wasn't such a big deal. I managed to, that was a mistake. Like I said during the earlier commentary, what I should have done was drop the bishop back, playing in a patient way. But as played, these are all relatively good moves by me. I got that pin in, and here, unfortunately, is where I had a missed opportunity. And what I should have done was, in fact, bring the pawn, the bishop to c4, attacking the rook. Rook can't go to a2 because my bishop defends a2. See, that's what I was afraid of in the game, but obviously I could just take that. I don't know why I didn't see that at the time. So putting some pressure on that rook would have been a nice way to go. And at that moment, I'm actually, you can see by the computer evaluation, winning until I cashed in on that pin, at which point it's still basically a draw. But if I had attacked that rook even here, the rook has to move. The computer says the best move here for white is actually king g3 to get out of the pin. But that means I win an exchange, and that's why I'm doing really, really quite well here. The reason they have to do that is otherwise, if they just simply move the rook, well, they've given me an opportunity now to use my doubled rooks, bring my rooks into this game. And if we get, rook trades, for instance, I'm just piling up more and more pressure on that knight. It's eventually going to fall, and I'm going to crash through and be a winner against this 2400. So I really needed to play against that pinned knight. Unfortunately, I cashed in too early and eventually got edged out by not activating my king in the end game. Well, this round against Jerry Razor and GM Jonatas is still going to go on for a little while. So here I paused my video and I came back at the start of the next round. And here we are at the start of the next round. I'm playing against GM Jonatas, who I just mentioned in the previous game. And I'm got the white pieces this time. Again, I'm going to play an e4 game. Now, I wasn't sure, his game has just finished. It ended in a draw. So even though I lost against a 2400, he lost to like a 1700. He drew with a 1700. But he's only just finished, whereas I've had a few minutes of a break to resettle. And we go into a Ruy Lopez. And he plays knight f6 here. The Berlin variation. I just castle. And castling here looks like it gives up a pawn by knight e4, but this is theory, and I believe the theoretical move is d4. And you're just going for a very quick development, and you're going to get a rook on the e-file now that he's captured. You see that that knight of his on e4 is pinned. It's pinned to his king. Can't move away, and it's going to fall before too long. So here, he's won a pawn already, but now I win it back, and I'm also putting pressure on this pinned knight over here. And I'm preparing f3 to win that knight. So he unpins his knight. And I immediately just take the chance to attack his pinned knight. He attacks my knight. Now my knight is pinned. So I need to basically trade down and cash in on my material advantage. So I take that. He's going to take back in some way, shape, or form. And now that he's done that, I'm free to capture his knight, thereby saying, hey, I've won material. So I do that, and when he captures back, he's going to have his bishop and his queen attacking my bishop, my knight. So I need to bring my other bishop into the game to help defend and also to unpin my knight. So now everything's under control. I'm up material. He castles. I'm looking at moves like, knight f5 to allow for maybe some bishop trades, maybe to encourage queen trades. But I also see maybe I should just continue developing. I could also consider just taking the bishop straight away, but then he can take here with check, and if I take back, I lose my queen. So that's why I ultimately decided to just continue developing. Now my rooks are all connected on the back rank. I still have both of the previously mentioned ideas of taking one bishop or maybe moving away and encouraging trades, which should be good for me since I'm up in terms of material. And he, I think, came up with a good idea here, but nevertheless, I am definitely stronger in winning here. His good idea was to move the attacked bishop back to a square where it also guards f5, but he's dropping this pawn here. So I can take this pawn. He can attack my knight, but then I can take his bishop. So I'm really taking a pawn with a tempo against a bishop here, which is why I'm happy to go ahead and do so. And here you can see I'm already up +2 in terms of material. I'm even up in time for once. So this is going pretty nicely. And I just need to basically try and continue on. Now, how to proceed? It'd be nice to get my king off this dark squared diagonal. Maybe I could try and attack his queen. But if I do, he can just play f6, attacking my bishop, and I really haven't gained anything there. I would like to be able to encourage more trades amongst our bishops, make our bishops face off, because again, trades when I'm 2 pawns up should definitely benefit me. And in fact, I like that. The knight's very stable there. The bishop's defended. Now my queen pins his other bishop, because if it moves, we get a queen trade, and all these trades should benefit me. My position's very solid, and I'm liking it. I'm liking this position. I'm looking to trade things off in the very near-term future. I would like to get my king, off this dark diagonal though. Maybe capture, and then, we'll see what happens after that. But obviously we have to wait and see what he plays first. He takes, so I'll take back. That was probably a good decision from him. Now he's actually pinning my own knight, and I can't move away because he'd be taking my rook in the subsequent play. So that gives me the idea of bringing my queen to the same file as my rook, but if I go on light squares, he can use his light squared bishop to pin my knight. So maybe I just go on this dark square here. If I go on the dark square, the position seems, I think, to be pretty good. I could also use this dark square. That's also an option, but then my queen is potentially undefended. It is currently defended by 2 knights, I suppose, but here just seems a bit more stable. You know, my queen and rook working together to both defend the knight. I could also maybe move my rook and then in future move the other knight. I could also move one knight to defend the other. So all these ideas are coming to mind. But yeah, ultimately I'm not too sure. If I do anything like this again, I lose the rook. So I do have to be careful even though I'm better. So ultimately I do this because it seems to me to look very solid. And it is in fact a very, very decent move. I can look to withdraw my knight. I can get the other rook in the game through the d file. Here he goes. He's attacking my knight again now. That knight is defended twice though, so I don't see a problem with just bringing this other rook into the game and attacking the queen. Although in hindsight, that was a mistake because what it actually does is it encourages his queen to move on to the e file and intensify the pressure against this knight. And now it's actually a bit of a problem. In fact, it is a problem. If I move, I can try and defend this knight, but there's problems. If I move the knight away, he's got a queen-rook battery against my rook. So this is now a problem. I can try and, protect my rook, but he can attack me or he can take the knight. Then I can try and attack his bishop. He can try and protect his bishop, but you can see this has become more complex than what I wanted it to be. I could do something like this, but again, he can play f5. And that knight is pinned. It can't move because if it moves, the rook behind it's going to fall. So I realize I've done something wrong. That natural looking move of bringing my rook across with the tempo on his queen actually was incorrect. I needed to be a little bit more careful. But now I need to make the best of it. Do I just try and protect this knight? Well, he still comes and attacks my pinned knight. I can't really protect it. So, it's unfortunate. I think I thought for a moment, do I bring my king up closer to my rook? So after he attacks my knight, I can maybe move the rook away. But even if I do that, he simply takes the knight straight away. So ultimately, I played this move rook d3 just to protect both of my rooks and saying, you know what, I'm going to have to give back some material here. I did make a mistake, but I have to give up some material. And if he takes my knight, maybe I can then basically turn the tables and pin his bishop and put a lot of pressure on his bishop and ultimately win that material back. So that is ultimately what I decided upon, to try and make the best of what became, unfortunately, a bad situation. So he did in fact take the knight, and now I'm putting lots of pressure on this bishop, which is pinned, and saying, if you move the bishop, obviously I'm going to take the queen. But he moves the queen. Now, if I take this bishop, things look okay, but there is a problem. He can take my rook back, and this rook is pinned, so I won't be able to recapture. So if I move my king away, he takes the knight. This is not looking great, but then I realize, wait a minute, I can take the bishop with this rook. And then if he takes back, I can take with my queen, and that should be just fine. Here, I think, everything's looking good for me. He didn't make the most of his opportunity, and once again, the situation is clarifying in my favor, and the position is simplifying as well. So things are looking good. I still have 5 minutes on the clock. So at this point, I'm 2 points up in terms of material. I'm attacking his rook twice. Yes, my rook is pinned, but it's defended. I can aim to move my king out the way and unpin my rook. I think things are looking pretty good here. The computer, in the hindsight analysis, also agrees. So, okay, we trade rooks. My queen's also now defending c2. Everything's nicely defended. I own both of the open files on the board. Can't put a rook there because I will take it with check. Although I'm currently pinned, I can move my king away and then I'll be threatening to do so. And that's what we get. He puts the rook there. I could also bring my king this way, but that gives him opportunities with his queen to check me. Maybe not there because I would take, but over there he could. And, I could keep moving my king into the center. But if I just move my king to h1, he's got no checks. I'm threatening to trade rooks there, and that should be really quite nice. I'm threatening to take rooks, in fact. And if he takes, I can take back either with my knight or my queen. Probably with my knight if I want my queen to continue guarding the c2 pawn. But also if he takes my rook, I can take with my queen, yeah. Maybe I haven't highlighted here, but if he takes with my rook, I could also play queen e8 check. And after he has to play this obligatory move, we trade queens, then I take the rook. So yeah, the situation here is good. The computer says it's like +4 in my favor in this position. And it stays that way for the rest of the game. So I don't want to spoil it. In fact, it goes better. Things get better for me as the game goes on. Unfortunately, though, I didn't win this game. There's the spoiler. I did not win this game despite having a great position and despite everything, because I end up running out of time, as we'll see. So he avoids the trade, which is smart, because otherwise he simplifies into a very easily lost position. And here I have options. I can play c3. That's solid. I could play something like h3. I can play queen d3 and just double up on the file, put him back on the move. There's lots of different options that I have at my disposal, but I spend a bit of time here thinking about them all, trying to wonder, what's best. Should I allow this kind of trade? Should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? I'm not sure how long I spend. But eventually I play this queen d3 idea, which is just solid, and says to him, look, if I stay solid, there's nothing you can do to me because I have way more material than you. So any kind of attack you conjure up, I'll just defend it with all my extra material. And eventually you're going to be in a bad situation. So I'm just going to hunker down, take it easy, stay solid, and try to not give you really any chances. I'll just stay as solid as I can. That's basically my strategy here. And as far as on the board play, it was a good strategy. Like I say, he never had a chance here except for the clock. If I had a 2-second increment even a 2-second increment in this game, I would have won it. The only issue is that there's 0 increment in this game. So running out of time, if you just, you could have a mate in one, but if you lose that last second to play it, you still lose. So here I'm just considering some of my options. Maybe I can play my rook across and do things, but that seems a bit complex. Here he's gone and given me a chance just to get a rook to the 7th rank. I don't know if he thinks he can mate me, but he can't because my knight is guarding that square. So that just lets me get a rook to the 7th rank with tempo, so that's really nice. If we get anything like that, we're not going to have any troubles. Here he's attacking the b2 pawn. That just invites me to play c3. I could also do it with my queen in a variety of different ways. And again, I think I spent too much time here considering all these different options. I should have just played any of them that are solid. And I think probably all of these moves that I'm mentioning here are probably all winning moves. So any of them will have done, but using the amount of time that I used was obviously not as wise. I think I probably forgot about the clock in this position, because c3 I think should have just come a lot more quickly than it did. What's he possibly going to do to me after c3? There's no harm that can be done after c3. Yeah, even after queen b3, but I like having the queen and the rook in the middle of the board on the same file. h3 is a nice move because, hey, why not? Just give my king a little bit of breathing space. And yeah, queen d4 is nice too, offering a trade, also attacking a couple different pawns. And if we get a trade and simplify, that position should be really good for me as well. In fact, I think this is the way that I end up going, offering him this queen trade and trying to just simplify. Still have 2.5 minutes on the clock. But he moves the queen away, avoiding the trade, attacking this pawn. So I don't really have time to take anything. I can attack his queen, but he just takes the pawn. So I think here it just makes sense to play the move that I believe I did play in the end. I was, wondering whether I maybe have some sort of a winning attack here. But no, I don't think so. So let's just play c3. Very, very solid move. reducing all of his options. He still has no attack. I can always defend everything he does, and eventually he's going to run out of ability. You're seeing some variations that I'm writing here. He can go queen a6 if he wants, but even at queen a6 I have the nice move queen to d5, which he can't mate me still because my knight jumps back to g1, so it's not mate. He can never get the other rook to come in because I can pin it and force a trade of rooks. And because he can never win my knight, I'm just going to end up, trading further more material there and being really good. So, if queen a6, basically all these arrows suggest that after queen a6, queen d5 would be a nice response. So again, he plays this move, keeping the game alive, trying to keep it from simplifying, but it doesn't matter. I'm still definitely winning. Here I do have an opportunity to play my knight up to e5, putting some pressure on the f7 pawn. And I decide, okay, let's do it. We can kick that queen somewhere. If it goes to a6, I can put my queen on c4, and that should basically get us a queen trade because of all the pressure we'll have. He moves away that way. He is looking not to mate me, but to attack the b2 pawn. So again, just wanting to stay solid and prevent him from having any actual, attacks against me, and just using all my resources to prevent all of his attacks. I decide just to drop the queen back, not allowing any of this complex rubbish. What's the point of allowing this? As you can see, my clock is ticking down as well, starting to get a bit too low. So I offer a queen trade and just keep everything together. This would be very, very nice for me. And he, again, just attacks my knight. And I say, you know what? I'm just going to bring the knight back. I looked at this for half a second, maybe more than half a second, maybe 10 seconds by the looks of things, which is probably too long. And I just drop the knight back. Maybe I can put it there on d4 in the future. It's a nice square for it to be. My rook is still attacking the c7 pawn. Again, on the board, this position is excellent for me. It's just on the clock you can see I'm starting to run out of time. So he moves his queen again. I could take this pawn now if I want. And why don't I do that? Well, because he's attacking the a2 pawn. So you know what? I'll play b3 first, just to prevent him from doing anything there. Then I can play c4. Eventually he's going to run out of things to do. Maybe I can get a queen trade on the e1 square if I want. If he ever tries to get his rook in the game, we can put our own rook to d8. Eventually, again, I still want to make some luft for my king in one way, shape, or form. He does try and get his rook in the game. Here I can pin that rook to his king, and that forces a rook trade. So let's do that. I still have 42 seconds left, which is not a lot because, again, there is no increment, and that is my only downfall in this game. I played relatively well. We had that one sort of misstep at the start, but after this trade, I take with check. He has to move, and now I missed my opportunity. I moved the queen back. You may have noticed there was a fork available. Knight g5, check, also hits the queen. I missed that move, unfortunately. Even still, with 37 seconds, probably would have been able to win it. But as it is here, I'm just really starting to run low on time. Again, with a little increment, of course, I would win. Here, if he steps back to g7, yes, I will have my nice knight fork g5 idea, and I can see that now. I just need to get my king active in the long term. So he moves here. Well, I can bring my queen in with a check. I see that this is looking very good for me because queen g5 check forces him back. Then I can take the pawn, winning even more material. And, maybe we're going to get a trade of queens at some point very shortly here too. But knowing him, he's not going to want to offer the queen trade. I've only got 19 seconds. That would make my job very easy. So he just moves the king back. And now I just try and get my king active. 16 seconds to go. Unfortunately, it's not enough. He checks me. I move to the side. He gives me another check, I believe. I come here. I'm just trying to get my king up and out of the way. He takes a pawn. I get my king a little bit more. No, I go in here looking to see if I can, put pressure on his king. And now I move my king back out the way. And now he's getting low on time too. He gives another check, I move out the way. And now, unfortunately, I've only got 7 seconds left, which is not enough time to win. He offers a queen trade, which I take him up on. Of course, I'm going to win in this position, just keep my king active. The position's like +7 or +8. It's basically, you can't lose in this position. I can do anything and I still win, but the problem is with 2 seconds on the board and no increment, I simply run out of time. I do play this knight e6, which forks both pawns. And then on the next move, I take a pawn, and then I can get my knight back to safety. But unfortunately here, ran out of time in a completely winning position. So really, that was it. Again, then this thing came up saying that I was allotted 1 point even without playing for the next round because there's not enough players to actually have everyone play in the next round. So they just, for the next round, they've given me a point. But basically, a lot of people have dropped out of this tournament already, probably because they've lost a couple games. I've lost a couple games. I would have been happy to keep playing, but unfortunately, too many people dropped out. So really, that was the end of the tournament. 2 losses, one against the 2404, who I think I played relatively well against, and one against this 1570 whatever rated player, who again, I played pretty well against, but unfortunately, too slowly. We'll have a quick look with the computer's analysis, and then I think we'll call it a day. So you can see in this position, yeah, definitely the evaluation bar heavily in the favor of white throughout this game. With the one unfortunate moment earlier on where I developed my rook with a tempo against his queen and got into this sort of bind. That was really the only mistake I had made. But if we just go back to the start, essentially, this Ruy Lopez, things are going well for me. This is actually theory. I can take the pawn. He does this now. Now he's under a lot of trouble because of my ability to attack this knight. Now we have some trades which are all in my favor. He basically has to take back, and now I win a knight and I'm up a material. And when he takes back, I play bishop e3. All of this seems correct as per the computer. He castles, nice move. Knight c3, also a nice move. He plays the bishop back, and just look at the evaluation. Like, I'm doing really, really nicely here. Unfortunately, couldn't finish it off. Even after this, I'm doing really nice. He put his rook here. I think queen e1 was also perfectly fine. Maybe not best, but I think here queen e1 is still a heavy advantage for me. My issue here was I should have done something different. I should not have brought my rook in. I should have maybe just done something like that. But doing this, that put his queen into a much better position. And yeah, whereas this move, I think, would have been a lot nicer. Maybe not best, but still retains a large advantage for me. So, unfortunately, after this, he did have pressure on my knight. And maybe another option here, I could have, yeah, this would have been best. Now the knights defend each other really nicely. My queen and rook, yeah, this would have been the best way to go. But after this, unfortunately, I had to try and make the most of this situation where he's actually a little bit better than I am. After he takes and I play rook d4, he is still a bit better than me, but I think what he needs to do is take my knight maybe, but doing what he did was a blunder, and now the advantage has come straight back to me. I didn't let that advantage go. You've seen the rest of the game already. But let's see, had he taken the knight here, was that his best move? Well, no, because I just simply can take the queen. So I'm not sure what his best move there would have been, but either way, he made a mistake. I then had a very solid position, which was easy to handle. And if I had just, again, if I had had an increment, it would have been such an easy position to handle. Gradually, I would have won. But unfortunately, without the increment, his ability to just avoid trades and play a slow game meant that my clock got wound down and wound down and wound down. But I'm not unhappy with how I played. I'm not unhappy at all with how I played. I think I played really solid. He didn't have really any chances at all if you look at that evaluation bar. As far as the I missed this knight fork, unfortunately. Yeah, this knight fork with 40 seconds, really, I would have still won this game, most likely, or taken all his material and it would have been a draw, but really no excuse for missing a beautiful knight fork like that. Regardless, I'm still winning the game. It's not like, it's not like I have a lost position or anything. It's just that it meant I ran out of time. So, unfortunately, that's all she wrote. Yeah, even allowing this check, it's fine. Like, it wasn't necessary, but I just wanted to get my king active. All he's got is a queen. I've got everything else I need. Putting some pressure on his king, getting my own king active, which is what I failed to do in the first game. But after this queen trade in particular, this position is just completely winning with absolutely no risk at all for me. Except, of course, the clock, as I've said about 18 times now. Both of these pawns were under attack. He didn't defend any of them, so I take one. Bring my knight back. At this point, when I ran out of time, I could have landed this fork and picked off more pawns. Then I would have got multiple queens. Obviously an easy finish, but with nothing left on the clock, his 19 seconds extra was enough to be a winner. So that about does it. I think here I maybe waited a little while to see if we would get one more round of play, but it wasn't.